This is Julietta and welcome to a brand new video. I'm currently sat in Alfa Romeo Giulietta, a car that I personally believe is hugely overlooked and also overhated, which is quite the combination to have. And when I first thought about making this video, I wanted to kind of focus on this car being, you know, a good idea for a first drive, something a bit different, a bit more flair than, say, you know, your Bogo Golf, Volkswagen Golf, Polo, Seat, Ibiza of a similar age. But as I started to spend more and more time with it and kind of started to read up on it a bit more, see me around town a bit more, I started to think this is actually a great car for anyone. Daily driver, motorway cruiser, it just does everything. So in this video I want to explore that a little bit more. Now, I think one of the most important things to talk about with an Alfa Romeo is the performance, and this right here is actually the 170 horsepower 1.4 litre petrol engine car. It's a base unit very similar to the base unit used in a Bath 500, and it's actually quite a punchy engine. 0 to 60 is about 7.9 seconds, just under 8 seconds. But as you kind of feel when you're driving the car, before 1500 RPM, not a lot's going on. You can probably be a bit faster to get pulled by a horse. But after that, it literally feels like a rocket that's been put in the back of the car. The way the turbo builds, you can hear it whirring away as you're going. It is incredible. You do feel like the front's kind of lifted a bit. It's quite an experience. It really is. It brings a smile to your face every single time. I think it's really, it kind of sums up the car. Probably the second most important part talking about an Alfa Romeo is the design, and for a car that's over 10 years old now, this still looks incredible. It only really had one facelift around 2015, 2016, and all that really did was kind of update the infotainment inside the car and also update the rear bumper and the front bumper. When you take a look at it from here, especially I think a colour like black or red, it really shows the design of this car. It's a good looking thing. It's a good looking thing. Back here, for example, kind of a cue back to the Alfa Romeo 147, the door by the window confuses all my mates. Don't have many, but the ones I do have is very confusing. So the tail lights here, this is, I think, one of probably the most, apart from the front grille, one of the most distinctive things about the Alfa Romeo Giulietta. The way the tail light curls and like that, it is a stunning thing to look at, and just to kind of see it at night, it really does. It's different. It's different. I think that really sums up Alfa Romeo as a brand. It's different. And this is, I think, what disappoints me most about not having a replacement for this car. I think the market at the hatch level needs something like this. It needs a car that's a little bit different, that kind of pulls buys in through design, and then you kind of think, actually, this is a really good car. You don't get that anymore. That's, I think, quite sad. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually end there. I also think that the interior of this car is pretty incredible, because the way the seats are positioned, how low they're kind of sat down, how much they hug you on the inside, as well as the dash feeling like it's quite raised up, but also quite protrudes a little bit to you. You feel like you're really hunkered down in quite a sporty little hatch. And small design cues like this, that gear knob there, they've got the DNA system down there, present in the current day Giulia and Stelvia quadrifolios, as well as the normal cars. It's just a nice place to be. There's a lot going on. It's interesting. It's fun. I enjoy being in here more than being a Golf of the same age. It really does kind of stick out to you when you sit in it. You kind of think, I could spend quite a bit of time in here. Probably the third key factor to consider when buying an Alfa. Something that comes up quite a lot, I think, is the reliability. Now, Alfa Romeo at this point, especially in about 2010, 2011, electrical reliability really wasn't their strong point, and I do think that flares up even in cars like this. Also, the Alfa Romeo Barrera. This car right here in itself has had a sensor replacement which cost about £200, but I think what people really overlook is the mechanical reliability of this car. It's incredible, to be honest. The 1.6 litre diesels are incredible motorway cruisers. People have racked up well over 100,000 miles in them. Cars like this are 1.4 litre petrol, are incredible around town, refined, efficient, and punch when you need them to be, pretty torquey. 170 horsepower, 170 foot-pounds of torque in this car. But that helps enthusiasts like us, because depreciation on the Alfa Romeo has been pretty grim, to say the least. It's really taken a hammering depreciation-wise, which makes this car pretty affordable in today's climate compared to your similar mileage Golf or Peugeot or Megane. And I think that's another reason why it stands out to me as a car that is overlooked for the price. I don't think you can actually get much better than this. So, sat in the Alfa Romeo, what is it like to drive? Firstly, it feels nippy. It feels that there's a lot of low down torque, which obviously there is. It's got quite a punchy mid-range. When you get to the top end, it feels like there's not a lot going on there really, but you've kind of probably changed up by then if you're kind of driving around town. But it feels quick. It feels a lot faster than the just under 8 seconds to 60 would make you think. The steering is also really light. When you put it in the dynamic mode, the DNA session, the steering also feels pretty light around town when you're in normal mode, but you can always stiffen it up by putting it into dynamic mode, and you really feel like there's a big punch on the engine. 3,000, 4,000, probably 4,500 RPM, so you feel that you've really gathered as much momentum from the engine as you probably would want to gather. The pedals, there's no place to put your left foot. I don't know why a designer would think that was ever a good idea, but apart from that, it's a little quirk I like to think that Alfa Romeo threw in there to really mess with your head. But driving wise, it feels nice. It feels like a nice place to be. It doesn't bounce around that much. It feels punchy, but it also doesn't feel very stiff. It feels like a car for all people rather than just an enthusiast car. I like to try the hot hatch to see how much stiffer that really feels, how much more performance you feel like you can really get out of that. But for a 1.4 litre, it really does feel like it shifts on. It feels like it's got a higher capacity than that. The torque low down is pretty juicy, I will not lie to you. So I guess answer the question, why do I think the Alfa Romeo was overhated and overlooked? I think at the time when it came out, it was never really a sensible buying decision. It was the car you probably bought with your heart more than your head compared to a Golf. As I say, it really was the benchmark of the time, despite the fact that this is actually the safest car in its class when it first came out. It really was. I think there were too many drawbacks for a lot of people to really accept the positives of the driving experience, the interior, the looks. There's quite a few things I'm listing that are positives. I don't really know why no one wouldn't buy one. I think Alfa Romeo's reputation at the time, and I guess till very recently, I'd say, continued reputation for reliability really didn't help it. The electrical gremlins that this car had, along with other cars of the era, I think would have put people off. And I really do think that despite the fact that this car was actually the safest car in its class when it came out, I think it really was a heart over head decision. And it was a lot of money at the time as well. Even when they were still releasing the Alfa Romeo Veloce 2 litre hot hatch, that was at the time, it still cost more than the Hyundai 30N when it was still kind of being sold. And I think that really meant you probably should be a real enthusiast to kind of put your money where your mouth is. But I think now that time has, you know, kind of rubbished the Alfa Romeo Giulietta in ways I really don't think it should have been. Depreciation's been pretty heavy, as I said before. I do honestly think that this car is a much more attractive proposition now than it probably ever has been. Be it your first car, a daily driver, a motorway cruiser, I think there's a choice of engine for you, for anyone who'd want to be buying a hatch. So I think this is the time for people to look back at this car and think that really was a good thing. We really had a good thing going there, and embrace it. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment what you think of Alfa Romeo as a brand. What do you think of the Alfa Romeo Giulietta as a car? And would you have wanted to see a new Alfa Romeo Giulietta? And